Hello, Jacques Rougeau.
Hello, how are you?
Good, you. Happy Canada Day.
Thank you. So Saber, huh?
Yeah.
All
Thank,
right.
thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So you were born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, right?
I was actually born and raised in Saint-Sulpice, about 20 miles northeast of Montreal on the St.
Oh,
Lawrence River.
okay.
Saint-Sulpice. Yep.
All right, that's still cool though. But you definitely spent a lot of time in Montreal.
Yes, I wrestled a lot of time in Montreal.
Yeah. Montreal has a great wrestling history, and your family contributed a lot to that. How did wrestling start in your family?
Well, it started in 1948 with my great uncle Eddie Auger, and
Wow.
Eddie Auger, and then he started, and then his two nephews, which Johnny and Jacques Rougeau, which were my father and my uncle, there was a second generation, and then my father had three kids, Raymond, Jacques, and Arma, which were the third generation, and then I had three sons, Jean-Jacques, Cédric, and Émile, which were the fourth generation.
Oh, that's awesome. Before you decided you were officially going to become a wrestler, were there any other choices or hobbies that you wanted to pursue? No, it
Nope.
was always
I was
wrestling.
It was always wrestling since the age of, I think, since the age of 6 years old. I was
Oh wow, that's awesome.
imitating the wrestlers and disguising myself as putting a sheet on my head and being Abdullah the Butcher around my pool,
Oh,
and so there was no question. And plus, it was something that I enjoyed doing. I was passionate about. My father was my hero. I'd go see him wrestle in Montreal, and so I guess it was just so normal for me to become a wrestler because everybody that was seeing me imitate the wrestlers, they thought I had talent, and I was very young, and they said, and so the first question that came to their mind to the people was like, "Are you going to be a wrestler like your dad? Are you going to be a wrestler like your dad?" And so I think they put it in my brain, and I became a wrestler because everybody told me to become a wrestler.
so your dad was your hero. He was the one who influenced you.
Absolutely, definitely. Amazing times when I was young to go see my dad wrestle at the Paul Sauvé Arena or the Montreal Forum, where
Yeah.
one of the greatest moments of that was not only when my father won the match, but was when we were racing to the car after the show to see who was going to be sitting beside him going home, and in the front seat with him. And
Wow.
so I always wanted to be sitting beside my dad to go home on that trip, about 30-minute, 40-minute trip to go home. It was like I was like in Neverland.
Oh, that's awesome. Was he the one who trained you as well?
No, my father didn't train me that much. It was mostly my brother Raymond and Pierre Lefevre who trained me. I got trained by these two guys mostly. Yeah, my
Mm.
father actually bought a ring and he set up the ring in the barn because we had horses and so he set up a ring in the barn and that's when I was trained. And but like I said, I learned the basics of wrestling in the ring, but the but that was at the age of like 14 years old. But since the age of 4 or 5 years old, I was going up at the arenas early, helping putting the ring up and running, doing flips in the rings and stuff like that, and just learning wrestling from all the other wrestlers too.
That's awesome. You also had a period in time where you were in Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling. Did you ever get to see or wrestle in the famous dungeon?
Hell no, I stayed away from the dungeon. I heard the dungeon was a place you better not go, and unless you want to look like a pretzel. But
Did you hear
I'm sorry.
did you hear any stories of anyone that you knew personally?
No, I just no because like I said, I stayed away from it. The only thing I heard from everybody is like, stay away from the dungeon, stay away from the dungeon, and it was so funny because Stu Hart I was very young. I was 17 and 18 years old when I went there for the first 2 years of my career, and and every Sunday he'd have me over from my hotel. I lived in a hotel by myself, and he'd have me go and have dinner at his house with 15 kids and 15 cats. And
Oh, nice.
and it was like every time we'd finish eating, he'd want to invite me downstairs, and I'd always told him, "Well, I'd go there, Stu, but I have a previous appointment, so I can't. So I'll maybe next time."
Did you ever get to wrestle in any other Canadian promotions?
Yes, I did. I wrestled in. I certainly did. I wrestled in a little bit in Ontario. Lately, actually, I've been going around. It's so funny because I've been going around in the Western Canada now. I've been invited to go do a lot of personal appearances and stuff. And but when I was young, the places that I went mostly was Quebec and in Detroit. When I was really young, I went to Detroit in Lansing, Michigan, and I stayed at the Sheik's house. And
Oh wow.
I was. I was actually working for the Sheik. It was one of the few territories that I'd been going when I was very young, and my dad had asked him to take me home, to take me under his supervision and show me a little bit. And I'll always remember that the Sheik had a beautiful home. He had a pool in his house, and so it was fun. And I remember those days. There was a Zulu, the big Zulu. There was the McGuire twins. There was I'm trying Bobo Brazil. There was anyway, and all those guys and the guys that I'd seen when I was young wrestle my dad and stuff like that. And then I'd end up in Detroit on the same card as them. They were still wrestling, so that was pretty cool. But mostly when I was young, I spent my time in Quebec until I left for Stampede Wrestling in '77, and then after that, I went to Mexico in '78. I went to Kansas City for Pat O'Connor and Bob Geigel and Bob Brown, and then I went to for the Fullers in Tennessee and Florida, and then I went to the Grahams in South Florida, and then I went to Georgia for Ole Anderson and WCW actually, and it was TBS, it was NWA then for Dusty Rhodes and Tommy Rich, and those guys, Wahoo McDaniel, and so I did a lot of small territories from the 78 to 85. I did a lot of small territories. Yeah.
Nice. My dad's from Halifax. Did you ever get to wrestle in Grand Prix wrestling?
No, I didn't. My Grand Prix Wrestling was the opposition. Was the company I hated the most on the planet because my dad and my uncle they had the As de la Lutte, yeah, and the Grand Prix was the competition. It was almost like to give you an example. It would be like if you're working for Coca Cola and then you show up in Coca Cola with a Pepsi truck and then so for me Grand Prix I hated them and because they were opposition to my dad and my uncle.
Yeah, that makes sense. How was the transition from wrestling in Canada to the US?
It was the same. Most actually, to be honest with you, most of the greatest wrestlers in the states are Canadian, and the style was the same. And New York City worked a lot with Montreal at the time. I'm thinking of Vince McMahon Senior, who did a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
business. Did a lot of business with Montreal and with Toronto too. I'm trying to think of who was the president, Jack Tunney, and he did a lot of business. A lot of those guys did business with Vince Senior, and there was a territory in the Northeast territory at the time where it was included, like Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York. Connecticut, and they go up to Vermont, and then being close to Vermont, they were just across the border. They'd come up to Canada, and so it was pretty much the same. Wrestling was international at the time. If you could wrestle, if you were a good wrestler in Quebec or in Canada, you were a good wrestler in the States. The only difference would be is if you were going to Mexico, and then if you go to Mexico, then you'd be screwed because in Mexico they contrary to all the wrestling that was done uh, in North America, in Mexico they would work with the right arm instead of the left arm. So if you go see old tapes, you'll see that every time you grab an arm in wrestling, you always grab the left arm. But when you go to Mexico, they grab the right hand side of the body. So that would be quite confusing, especially when I went there in 1978. It was a complete different thing, but it was good because I learned to be ambidex, so that was good.
Hmm. Well, in Canada, Andre the Giant also spent a lot of time there, especially in the Montreal Forum. Do you have any stories about him?
I sure do. I remember a lot of the wrestlers, especially when I was young, when he used to wrestle for my dad and my uncle. Um, I remember Andre sitting in the locker room, and just me being like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and him being just such a monster, and being so big, and all the wrestlers would. I remember Abdullah would ask me like, and a couple of guys would ask me, hey kid, hey, give me some money, and say, go get me some hot dogs, and early in the day, and I'd go get some hot dogs, and Abby would ask me for 2, 3 hot dogs. Another guy 2, 3 hot dogs, and Andre the Giant would ask me for about 10 hot dogs. And I was like, and I was like, and boy, but he let us trace there, because when he farted, I'll tell you, he farted as 10 hot dogs. I'll tell you, because I'd never heard a fart so loud in my life. I remember when I was young, but yeah, and it's funny because when we grew older. We became friends because we in the WWF, me and him, we for like 10 years we played crib together, cribbage, and not a lot of people knew how to play cribbage, so I became as there was Tito that played crib, Tito Santana, there was Arnold Skolin, and me and Andre, and that we were about the only four that was playing cribbage. So a lot of times when we were traveling in airplanes, it was amazing because he was always in first class and I was in economy with all the other wrestlers. And then as soon as the plane would take off, the flight attendant would come back in the economy section, and she'd say, Jacques Rougeau, Jacques Rougeau, and I'd say, yep, yep. Then they'd bring me up in first class because
Oh,
the seat beside Andre was so big they couldn't sell the seat. So I'd be flying first class all the time playing cribbage with Andre. So Andre was very cool, very cool.
that's awesome. So how did you end up signing with the WWF?
Just by making a name out of myself. I was in all these southern territories and stealing hearts, and the crowds loved me. I was working very hard to become better and better, and I was noticed by the promoters. I never had a hard time booking myself. Everybody wanted my talent, and eventually Pat Patterson, who was a good friend of ours, who had wrestled in Quebec with Raymond and I, and Frenchie Martin and Pierre Lefebvre, and we had many angles that we did together. He appreciated our work, our quality of work, and him being the right hand man of Vince McMahon, he just thought he just thought of me like because especially that we're coming into the territory in Quebec and they were stealing the territory away from Dino Bravo and those guys, and so he needed a French Canadian to be his headliner, and which happened, which they had me come in, and the first ever show they had in the WWF was in the Verdun Auditorium, and they had me as the headliner against Samu. And underneath me there was Superfly, Snuka. There was you can name them. They were all there, and I was the main event against Samu. And Pat Patterson, it was his idea to have a local being the main event, and from then on, Vince took a look at me and he just said, "Hey, I want this guy." And so I told him. So he made me an offer, and I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll go." I said, "One condition." I said, "Well, two conditions. First condition, I need $5,000 a week. That's my first condition. And the second condition is I want to bring my brother Raymond with me." I said, "I want to go as a team." And so he said, "Okay, done." So we signed and we went.
Well, one of your most famous runs, as you said, was as the fabulous Rougeau brothers. How was it like teaming and just going around on the road together with your own brother?
Well, it was something I was familiar with because we did like 8 years before that in the province of Quebec. So I knew what it was to travel with my brother, and but the bigger difference was that when we had Jimmy Hart with us. Jimmy Hart was really amazing. Jimmy Hart is the greatest manager of all times. I'll say it till today because of the time he invests in his talent, in his closing. He gets coats made to his talents. He makes music to the talents. Actually, two songs in the WWF in the top 10 songs, two of them in the history. I got two songs of mine that Jimmy Hart wrote. I Am the Mountie and We're All American Boys as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. So, and Jimmy Hart was always the type of guy that would get on a microphone and never talk about himself. He'd never come on and say, "I'm the brain," or "I'm this," or "I'm that." He'd always say, "Let me tell you something about my talent. And let me tell you something about my boys." And so Jimmy Hart, it was really amazing to work with him and travel with my brother Raymond with him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the All American boys, how was that transition to becoming heels?
We didn't want to become bad guys. Vince wanted us to become bad guys, and the reason was that was because we weren't getting over as much as they'd wanted us because we were baby faces. We were good guys, but Americans are so patriotic that
Mhm.
they would never love us as much as an American. So when Vince realized that we had the talent, we were delivering the matches, we were doing everything perfect, and we were still not getting the support of the fans, that's when he realized, no, we got to make these guys bad guys, and that was the best move because and I remember when he approached us to do that, Raymond and I looked at each other like bad guys, the Rougeos, like and then I was thinking of my uncle Johnny and my father probably rolling in their grave, going like because the Rougeos are always baby faces all the career, so after reflection, we knew that it was that or it was the door. We were going to leave the business for WWF, so we took it and then realized that it was the greatest thing that we ever did. It was so much fun to ridiculize and laugh at the Americans and have fun at it, and so it was great.
Yeah, that is awesome though. So in your run as the tag team, you got to face so many iconic other tag teams like the Hart Foundation, the Dream Team, Demolition. What was it like to face them, and who was your favorite to face?
Well, to be honest with you, there was a lot of great teams. It was an era in the '80s where the teams were the highest competition, the Killer Bees, talking about the Bulldogs, talking about we could go on and on about the teams that were there. Uh, some of my favorite teams are the Rockers. The Rockers and the Hart Foundation probably would be the two teams that I enjoyed the most working with. Brett, such a great talent, and Anvil, not such a great talent, but great character. And we found a routine that he didn't kill us during the match. So Anvil, because he was pretty stiff, but eventually after working 4 years with him, we found a nice bed that we could all sleep in and really tear up the crowds and have a great time and every night. So when we worked with the Hearts, we knew we were going out there, we're going to work hard, but we knew we were going to have 18, 20,000 people on their feet at the end of the match. And the same thing for the Rockers. The Rockers, Marty Jannetty, what a great talent. Shawn Michaels speaks for itself. So when you get four talent in there like that in the ring, and we were creating so many stories that were not like 100 miles an hour. It was more like empathy. It was more like interaction with the crowd and getting their emotions up and that's the kind of match I used to like to have anyway. So it was like those would be the two best teams that we work with, I'd say.
Yeah, that's nice. So as a French Canadian in an English dominated industry, did you any ever face any challenges?
A lot of challenges. It's like, yeah, it's like bringing a Mexican to meet Donald Trump. Yeah. I'd say there was a lot of animosity, a lot of, we got to be honest with each other. I've always been honest, and I'm going to say it as it is. Uh, the French Canadians are not liked very much by the Americans because, especially in the dressing room when you're speaking a foreign language, like me and Raymond and Dino and Ricky Martel, and we're just speaking between us among family and friends, we'd speak French because it's our native language. It's easier for us to speak to each other. It's more natural. But when the guys are in the dressing room and they hear this foreign language, some of them are so jealous and skeptical that they think that we're so vain that they think that we're talking about them, and which we weren't. And if you really look at French Canadians, and I'm sure if you talk to a lot of athletes, whether in other baseball, football, or hockey, or they'll tell you the same thing. French Canadians were not very much liked by the Americans. They were not very much liked by the Canadians, and
Yeah,
not very much liked by the English community in Montreal either. So, so French Canadians are not the most popular people in the world.
yeah. So um in today's era of wrestling, the French Canadians and the Canadians have gotten more success, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Um, do you think the landscape in that has changed with that?
No, I don't think it's changed. I think when you're hot, you're hot. When you're doing business for them, you're loved. I think the day that they stop doing business for them, they're going to go back to the back of the list. Kevin Owens, being my student. He was 14 years old when he came to my school, and for 4 years, three nights a week, 2 hours every night, 6 hours a week, I was training that kid from 14 to 18 years old, and a great talent. And Sami Zayn came to my school shortly and left, and but great charisma. I met him on a plane not long ago, coming back from PEI, and it was nice to see him and talk with him. But I think that, like I said, uh, Americans will always be so patriotic, and I think that Americans will, uh, especially in the wrestling business, they will treat you well as long as you bring money in their pocket. And when you stop bringing money in their pocket, they're going to treat you okay, but they're not going to. There won't be any more favoritism. There won't be any more. It's. I can't help but to think of Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, who when we came to Vince McMahon, we were bringing him the world, the French community. And I'm not talking about Quebec. I'm talking about Africa. I'm talking about France. I'm talking about everywhere. We were opening doors. Portugal, a lot of places where there was French people speaking, and we were gods to him. And then at the end of our run, when we weren't so important to him, you could feel like there wasn't any more red carpet when he was talking to us, and there was no more. So I think a lot of people are like that in the wrestling business. They treat you very very nice when they need you, and when they don't need you after that, then you just become a number.
Hmm. So when Sami Zayn was in your school shortly and when Kevin Owens was there for a long time, did you ever see that they had something special than the rest of your students?
Sami Zayn, no, because he was there too short. But Kevin Owens, yes. Kevin Owens was. I knew he had great talent, and I spent a lot of time with him because I knew there was something to do with that kid, and I enjoyed spending time and helping him out because he was learning fast. He was one of those kids that he would caught on real fast. He had a cute little baby face. He was very acrobatic. He was and plus he was always coming around me and hugging me and kissing me, and so it was like he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy. He was so so it was easy for me. It was very likable. He was that kind of person that you get grow attached to. So I invested a lot in him, and I'm glad I did because he brought a lot to my company as far as matches that were amazing. Every time I had him in a match, I put a match together with him. We always brought him to his limit, and he always performed at 100%. So it's all good.
You have nothing bad to say about him, but in some interviews I've found he's said that he hasn't talked to you in forever, and from what I've found, he doesn't have many nice things to say.
Well, it's very simple what happened between me and him. I had an organization that was family orientated, and I had a name. I had a lot of contacts in media, so I had a lot of coverage, and I was portraying a battle against Vince McMahon. My battle was against Vince McMahon. And the only way I could produce a company in Quebec that can draw some attention and do well like I did, sell out my arenas like I was having a new kind of wrestling, and mine was family orientated, which meant no middle fingers, no cussing, no girls half dressed, no chairs, no tables. Me, it was family orientated. It was all like, it was high flying, acrobatic. It was charisma. It was midgets. It was giants. It was Spider Man. It was the Mummy. It was a place where families could take their 4-year-old kids and almost like bring them to a circus and have a great time. So me having all these contacts in the media, I was putting them up front in my publicity. And what was happening is the people that I put in the Journal de Montréal, or bring them to TVA, or bring them to Denis Lévesque, or bring them everywhere, they were the image of my company. So all the families that were sitting at home, they would see them as the image of my company. So I could not permit those wrestlers to go wrestle in front of 50 people or 100 people on another weekend, on a given weekend, and be bleeding and chairs and all that kinds of stuff when they were the image of my company. So when you wrestled for my company, you had to be exclusive. You couldn't wrestle for violent organizations, which they all were. And like Vince McMahon was going worse and worse as the years came along. And so for 4 years, uh, we got along great, me and Kevin Owen, really great. And until one day I had a press conference in Laval, and for my show that I was going to have, and we did our press conference, and he was there for the press conference. And I announced his match, and then after the press conference, he came to see me after the press conference, and he says, "I'm finishing up. I'm leaving now. I want to go wrestle elsewhere." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I wish you would have told me before the press conference, though. I wouldn't have advertised you as much. I wouldn't have put all the marbles on you. But good luck." And that was the last time I talked to him. So,
Wow.
so, 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 Vince McMahon, hearing things that I'm saying about his organization, that I'm completely against his organization because I think it's free, I think it's violence, it's sex, it's so free that him trying to go with Vince McMahon and stuff, and all the other independent wrestlers, independent companies that didn't like me because I was exclusive and I was selling out arenas with 5,000 people, 3,000 people, 11,000 people at Jerry Park. Um, they were upset with me because they would have liked to wrestle in front of all these people. But however, my like I explained to you, I had an image with this company. It was family orientated, so it was nothing personal with the companies in Quebec. It was just me building, creating an empire that was different style, and that was it. So they had a choice. The people had a choice to stay where they were at or come wrestle for me exclusively, but it was their choice. I never forced it upon anybody. So a lot of people turned against me and started bad mouthing me. But the truth of the matter is you could do what you want. You could come wrestle with me in the big arenas and learn from my skills and my school, or you could stay where you're at. But you can't have both the best worlds. And I had a lot of people send me some things, some podcasts and videos where Kevin Owen just kills me. But the truth is you know what? I always said to myself, whenever you cut someone down, you put yourself down even more. So he's gonna have to live with that. Karma's gonna catch up with him one day, because the truth is I never had an argument once with him. I never argued once with him. I never told him to shut up. I never told him to. The only thing I said to him that was negative was, "Okay, I wish you would have told me before the press conference. Well, good luck," and that was
Yeah.
it. So he's gonna have to live with the consequences of all his podcasts that he did and all the things that he cut me down and to save his position or save his job or to defend Vince or whatever. But the truth of the matter is the battle was between me and Vince. It was between nobody else. It was Vince's kind of wrestling and it was my family orientated wrestling.
Yeah. Did you ever have any students that you trained that went on to other big federations as well?
Well, Jeremy Prophet, he's my winner of Wrestling Academy twice. Won again this year, $10,000. It was amazing. He's been just going everywhere across the country and some places in the states, and but no, I've trained a lot of guys. I've trained a lot of guys that had potential. But the most potential was Kevin Owens and Jeremy Prophet. I'd say those two guys were really exceptional. Jeremy Prophet, for some political reasons, for some reasons that are unknown to me, is not in the big leagues right now. He's just such an amazing. If you have a chance to go see on YouTube the match between the winners of Wrestling Academy of last year, the triple match, three-way match between Chad Daniels, Giant Orion, and Jeremy Prophet, you're going to see a main event in any wrestling organization around the world. And you'll see, you'll understand what I'm telling you about Jeremy Prophet. And it's just absolutely amazing talent. I'm backing him up every way, all the way, everywhere I go. Anybody who wants to have talent, get Jeremy Prophet on your card. You're going to have some moves that they don't even do in WWE. So check that out. You'll see. If you're a wrestling fan, go check out that match on YouTube, the finals of Wrestling Academy 2024, of the triple match at the end when two of those three win the $10,000, and you'll see it's just about amazing on the men's side.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds amazing. So, one of the famous stories that involved you in the WWF was with the Dynamite Kid. Can you elaborate on that and tell us some things that happened during that?
I'm not going to go through the whole story. If you go through podcasts and stuff, I'll just tell you that actually today I'm going to be there's a movie that's going to probably be made in Europe. They called me today just before I talked to you, and they're asking me my side of the story and everything. So it was a bad time. It was a time where there was a lot of drugs, steroids, and pills, and uppers and downers, and girls, and all that good stuff, the nightlife, and and it was something that we didn't do, Raymond and I, and so we had a lot of heat because of that, because we weren't followers, and we weren't drug headaches and pill headaches, and so that put us on the bad side of the a lot of the people, and the Bulldogs they were big bullies. And Dynamite Kid was a big bully. He had the inferiority man complex, a small guy who was so great. What a great athlete! What a great entertainer! What a great wrestler! That for one reason was fighting his own demons. That if that guy would have been 6'5", he would have been the the goat of wrestling today. But
Hmm.
beside his small size, he managed to become on the top of the world. And so he was just a big bully. And the long story short is I didn't want to be bullied. Uh, I've never looked for trouble in life. I've always been the type of guy that wants to laugh and have fun, and but that was portrayed maybe as weak in the dressing room. So and Dynamite Kid picking on weak guys, then he decided to pick on me, and he found out that he found out that I wasn't a guy to pick on, and and so that's pretty much the story. To be honest, without going in details, it was a it was the most horrible time in my life. It was the hardest time in my life. But I managed to come over and get over bullying, and for 25 years I did conferences in schools to help kids fight bullying without using violence, and that was a therapy for me. It was something I'm so grateful today that I had a chance to share that with kids in schools and help them out that uh, to use it in a positive way. And uh, and Mike Cohen actually is a man who helped me a lot with that. He got me involved in a lot of schools, and I did a lot of schools across Quebec and Ontario. And the word got out that hey, Jacques is getting the message to the kids. He's helping them without using violence, and that was the whole thing, was to give some advice on how you could work together in schools and how you get to beat intimidation and bullying by just the most important thing. And there's so many ways of saying it, but the best way to say it, and the you got to talk about it. The minute you're bullied in life, the minute you talk about it, half of the battle is won. Even three-quarters of the battle is won, because once you talk about it, someone's going to do something about it. And
Hmm.
but the problem is in bullying is you fall into this dark cloud. You get afraid, you're scared, you're afraid that if you speak out, it's going to get worse, and then you get into this dark cloud, and you think there's no way out. And I know I've been there, done that, and I found a way to find a little ray of sunshine there through that dark cloud, and find my way out of it. And if ever you know anybody that's and the other thing I want to tell about bullying really fast is, like, sometimes in schools, you have people that are being bullied, and you see the bully who's going to be intimidating somebody, and instead of helping the person that's in trouble, you're going to kind of laugh, just to protect yourself. Like, you're going to laugh because as long as you're laughing with the bully, then you're not a victim. He's not going to pick on you because you're encouraging him. But the truth is you're a coward. And if everybody gets together, and teamwork, if everybody stands up together, if the bully does something to someone and he looks to feed himself with applauses and attention, and you don't give him that, if he can't find his way of feeding and resourcing himself, he's going to stop.
Hmm.
And so it all happens by being together. If you see someone that's in trouble, go get him out of there. Because you know what? The bottom line is, I was 250 pounds when it happened to me, 6'3". Il y a personne à l'épreuve de ça. No one's untouchable, and you
Yeah.
always think it's going to happen to other people, and it could happen to you one day. So if so, don't underestimate. So if ever you feel like you see someone that's in trouble, go and help them. and just go and help them, even if it's not someone that you know. Just go give them a tap on the shoulder. Go give them a little hope spot, a little light, and you may have changed somebody's life. You may be a lot more than you think. I know so many stories through the 25 years that I helped kids in schools that kids left the school and on a Friday after being bullied and never came back. Never came back. And so by tapping someone on the shoulder, by supporting somebody that's being bullied, you're gonna change their life maybe, and who knows? Maybe you'll be a hero and you won't even know it.
Hmm. That's so cool that you took that experience and helped other kids deal with their experiences. So after the incident happened, did you get any support in the locker room from any other wrestlers?
Well, actually, 2 weeks after that happened, the incident when I took care of the situation, the Bulldogs quit the business, and and it's funny because I'm not a fighter in life. I'm not a I'm an entertainer. I'm a guy who plays the role of being a fighter, but I'm not a fighter. And so I went back to being myself, just the guy who likes to laugh and have fun, play cards in the dressing room, and all that good stuff. And so I never expected, I never wanted to be a hero after that. As a matter of fact, when people approach me like that, hey man, congratulations on what you did, I didn't want to hear about it. It wasn't something I was proud of. It wasn't something that made me feel bigger. It was horrible. Every time people talked to me about it, was I was going back, I was scarring again and thinking about those hard times, those days I was putting one foot in front of the other, not knowing if I was going to continue. And no, it was I had a lot of people who respected me before as a person. The guy was being funny and having, and then the same people respected me in another way, but never showed it to me. It never changed. I never became like the guy who was if there was an argument in the dressing room, someone would come up and say, "Better not, better stop, or I'll send Jacques on you." You know, I never became the killer or the bodyguard. Or I always stayed the same kind of guy who liked to have fun.
Yeah, that's awesome though. So after your run as a tag team, you transitioned into one of the most famous Canadian wrestlers, the Mountie, that I think really skyrocketed your career. You had great matches with people like Big Boss Man, Bret Hart, Roddy Piper. And which one of those rivals stands out to you?
Well, of course, I got to go with the big boss man because it was a natural. It was the American law enforcement officer from Georgia who who put ketchup on his eggs, and he was brought up in the old Georgia South and Hicktown and against the Canadian law enforcement officers. So there was a natural rivalry between the United States and Canada, and to end up in a jailhouse match where the loser had to spend the night in jail in New York City, and for a year just hyping this match and having that on a pay per view where every arena across the globe was sold out for wrestling, but there was no wrestling in there. It was all happening in Madison Square Garden, and there was 20,000 people in Australia. There was 20,000 in Paris. They were all in front of giant screens to see that match, and and that was like you said, it was most of my one of my most iconic matches. People come up to see me in Comic Cons, and they can't help to talk to me about the night I spent in jail there. But it was a great setup. It was awesome. And, not underrating Brett's matches I had with him and Davey Boy and Tito Santana and Piper. But it was so long the feud between me and Bossman, and we did so much good business for them, and it was so fun to work with Big Bossman because he was a 300 pounder that was so light on his feet. And you know, in wrestling, you give your body to your opponent, you trust him. And Big Boss Man, I gave him my body night after night after night, and he always laid me down flat. He always took care of me. He always everything was done so professionally with him. So plus he was a hell of a guy. He was just a nice guy, Big Boss Man. In the dressing room, him and me, we just got along so well. And he was a guy that liked to laugh too and have fun. And he wasn't a loudmouth. He was just a guy that liked to have fun.
Yeah, I love the video of you on the horse showing the American directions. Was that planned or did you just feel the moment and did that?
No, that was actually planned, and it was amazing. The vignettes that they did when I first became the Mountie, it was so awesome to be sitting on the horse and then to tell this American that was lost that getting off of my horse and taking the horse under the head there and telling him that if you want to find your way back to the Canada, just go at the front of my horse, and if you want to find the United States, come at the back of my horse, and then lift the tail up, and it was just it was such a that video is so amazing. You know, I do up till today now. I've been for 7 years now. I've been doing stand up comedy, like
Mhm.
stand up shows. I do that, and uh, and I have that part in my show where people are just rolling on the floor when I tell them that, show them that video when I lift up the tail of the horse and you can see the big donut, and I'm telling them that if you want to go back to the United States, just follow that part of my horse, and so that's very very funny.
What inspired you to start doing stand up?
Just about talking about my career, and you know what? There was a guy that was a student of mine at my wrestling school, and he came up to see me one time, and he says, "Jacques," he says, "with all the stories that you tell us at the wrestling school, have you ever thought of doing stand up? Like, just to go and tell the people your story?" And I said, "No." So he brought me a bag, and he brought me a bunch of tickets, and he brought me a venue. He says, "Go sell tickets, Jacques." He says, "You're a salesman." And I started going to sell tickets in the commercial residence, and I was selling tickets like hot buns. And so since then, 7 years now, I every venue I do, I sell out. My girlfriend and me, we go and we sell our tickets. And I just had one last week at the Da Vinci Center in Montreal, in the Italian region there, Saint Leonard, and all the seats were sold, 500 seats, and it was amazing the show we had there. I had little Tiger Jackson, the midget, come on the stage and play a little part. And because I always talk about midgets, how I love them and how I wanted one when I was a kid, and so I have him come up on the stage, and we have a little stunt that we do, and it was amazing last week. I had guys, so much important people, influential people that were there. Minik, the barber shop. I had this guy Danny from the Alouettes. He's the general manager. Danny, do you know his name? Danny Matcher.
I'm not
Uh,
sure. I'll look
Mach,
it up after, but I'm not
yeah,
sure.
Machiaccio. He's the one who brought the Alouettes to the Grey Cup, and he's actually the general manager right now. The Alouettes. He was in the stands last weekend at the Da Vinci Center. I had Chris Nyland come see my show. I had Marilyn Sibayal. I had so many celebrities that came to see my show, and they have a great time every time. So it's fun. I entertain the people. My girlfriend, she puts videos up and she puts pictures up, and I go back through stories that I did, my matches with Hulk, the things that happened before, my victory over Hulk, and how it happened, and of course the story of the Bulldogs, and all the other wrestlers in the old days, that they all had stories that were hidden behind the dressing rooms or behind the curtains that I bring out, and some were more funnier than other. But I have a great time, and at the end I always have a big mat, crash mat that they call there in the gymnastics. And I go pick 4 or 5 people out of the stands, and I bring them up. They don't even know I'm going to go get them, and I bring them up to suplex them, to power bomb them, and
That's
they have a
awesome.
blast. Yeah, they have a blast. I always pick up a nice, cute little girl at the end there, and I have her this sexy, crazy move that I flip her upside down, and everybody's laughing like crazy. So it's a good time. We're having fun with that.
Do you have any shows planned in the
I
future?
actually have one, and I have a show in Maniwaki coming up in October 4th, 3rd and 4th, and then I got one in Rimouski coming also in October. The date's not been confirmed yet, but yeah, I'm gonna do a couple more this this year. But next year I'm gonna do more. Um, as you know, I'm sure you probably heard, my girlfriend, she fought cancer for the last 2 years, and she had 16-month cancer battle. So now she's been in remission. She's been cured for like 5 months now, and so we're starting the shows back again. That took a lot out of us, but she won her battle. And so yeah, she had operations, she had chemo, she had what's the other thing that you do, la chimio, c'est la radio or radiotherapy. It was hard. It was like for 16 months. It was twice a week at the hospital, and but she's a fighter, and she lost all her hair. She lost a lot of things, and but she came back now for 5 months, and so we're back on track now. And so we're gonna do a lot of more shows next year. And I do a lot of Comic Cons too. Like I've been flying out. I was in Europe in Comic Con a couple of months ago. I was in New York, Boston. I got Minneapolis. I'm going to Minnesota again next week. I'm I got a couple. I got another one in Long Island in October. So I do a lot of Comic Cons. I was in Vegas not long ago doing with Tito Santana and doing a Comic Con over there, a signing. I was actually at WrestleMania weekend. I was there, and I do a lot of those. It's fun. I get to see my old mates, my old friends, and it's funny because life. If people don't believe in karma, I do, because. Uh, all the wrestlers that stood by me during the crisis with the Bulldogs, they're all alive and well. They're all with me in the Comic Cons, and all the guys that were against me, they all passed away. and
Yeah.
and, and you know they're all gone. So it's like so the Lord's been with me, and all the people that supported me through this whole career. We still meet now in Comic Cons and have so much fun talking about the old times. And sometimes I haven't seen a wrestler in 30 years, and then I see him. It's like, holy shit, you got old. And they look at me. They say, you too. But I have a lot of fun. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that about her, but congratulations. That's awesome. She beat it. And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
speaking about Comic Con, my dad got this when you were at Montreal Comic Con.
Look at that. Yeah, well, that's my son Cedric. Hey, what a boy, huh? I'm sure I'm not the father. But 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 anyway, yeah, what a kid. He's 350 pounds. He's down to 300 now. He's in top shape. He's down to 300, and he's 6'7", and what a monster. But
Yeah.
he looks like his mom. But anyway, I'll let this say that. I always say that as a joke. What a monster! He looks like his mom. But,
So another thing you do besides stand up is you were a trainer for a while. What made you want to become the trainer?
Just giving back. Just I love the passion. The passion of wrestling was in me since I was a kid, and to teach, and to have these kids come to my school, and within 5 6 months bring them in front of 4 or 5 thousand people and to perform, like, with the music and the smoke and the whole thing, and to make them live my dream. And I actually had a on Sundays I had a lesson with the autistic kids, and I had a class for them, and it was so amazing. For 10 years, I took autistic and trisomic kids, and I taught them how to wrestle, and I taught them how to put a match together, and they'd come in front of like 10,000 people, 5,000 people, and they'd go out of the curtain like, yeah, they were living their dream, man. And the parents and the everybody, the family was there. They couldn't believe that I did that with their kids, like, and they weren't only there present, they were good. I made them good, and so it was fun. Well, you're talking about joy in life, giving a chance to a less fortunate kid to become a hero one night, or a big villain. Like, it was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, my school was my passion. It had always been. And if I wasn't so old right now, I'd probably have it again. But now I'm getting too old to start throwing myself around in the ring. But and when you give yourself, like, you have a school like I had, there's no going in at 50%. You go in at 100%. You go in the ring with the kids. You don't throw them around and tell them what to do. You go in the round and you tell your kids, throw me around. But then you ask them to throw me carefully. Then you show them how to be careful, how to manhandle somebody that's in the ring, to take care of your opponent. And so you give yourself at 100% when you have a school like that. So that's why I couldn't have my school anymore today, because I wouldn't want to be the guy who throws everybody around and not be able to show them how to fall and how to take the fall, how to let your breath out of your system before you fall. So, and all these tricks that you have, and if you don't do it, you can't just talk a lesson. You got to show a lesson. You got to take it, and you got to give and take. And so, but my school was always my passion, always will be.
Yeah, that really is truly amazing. So,
The way
another
the
one.
way you're talking, I'm a pretty amazing guy, huh? You
Yeah,
always say, you always say, that's amazing, that's amazing.
well, it
you're
is.
you're amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Looking back on your career, do you have any regrets or moments that you cherish the most?
Oh man, you're going through a 43-year-old career. Holy mackerel. So I got some regrets for sure. Some things I'd like to start over. Like anybody else, I'd like to be less confident. I'd like to be less, like at least, I was very confident when I was young. Like, I was good at what I did, and I thought everybody else was too. So I didn't mind showing it and sometimes bragging about it, which I'd like to go back then and be more humble. Um, that's something I'd like to change. And what was your question again? There, I forgot the second part.
Were there any moments that you cherished as well?
Yeah, yeah, beating Hulk Hogan in Montreal. Being the only Canadian to ever beat Hulk Hogan.
Hmm.
It's amazing getting the pinfall 1, 2, 3. I'm one of a few in his hands that could say that beat Hulk Hogan with the
Yeah.
biggest wrestling icon ever. Uh, uh, Becoming tag team champions with my brother in Montreal, beating the Hart Foundation, beating Bret the Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. Uh, my big boss man match, jailhouse match on the pay per view, seen around the world. Um, I got quite a few in 43 years, but when people ask me that question, if they ask me one, it's beating Hulk Hogan. Just because Hulk Hogan, there's so few of people that beat Hulk Hogan, and he was at his prime. He was NWO. He was at his prime when I beat him, and I had no business beating him. It's just he did me a favor because he liked me, and that's one of my most iconic moments I think in my career.
Yeah, that's awesome though. Um, so you have wrestled all over the world. Is there a country or a city or province, state that you really enjoy wrestling in and you just love the atmosphere?
I'm gonna be corny. I'm gonna say the Montreal Forum, because when you wrestled in the Montreal Forum, you had your own fans that were there, and it was different. The Montreal fans are the best fans in the world,
Oh
and
yeah.
if you ask a guy from Texas, he's gonna say in Texas is the best fans in the world. If you ask a guy from Florida, he's gonna say the best fans in Florida are in Florida. So it's a cliche, but the truth is that people don't know, and you could ask a lot of wrestlers from other countries, and they're going to tell you that Montreal was a very special place to wrestle. So imagine us being the local heroes, how much that was amazing for us when we won the belts, Raymond and I, against the Hart Foundation. I remember after the show, we took the belts, and there was 5,000 people outside of the building, almost like a Stanley Cup win, and people were jumping on my car. And then I remember my wife at the time, she was saying, oh my God, they're gonna." I said, "Don't worry, honey, they love us." And then it was like they were scratching my car. I didn't care because they were just celebrating the victory of the French Canadians who became world tag team champions in the WWF. Raymond and I. It was amazing. So the Montreal fans, I'm gonna have to say, are the greatest fans in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. That might just be because I'm a Montrealer as well. But yeah, the Montreal fans are awesome. I could totally agree with you there. So, did you have any pre-match rituals before you went out?
If I what?
Did you have any pre-match rituals, things you did before a match?
Yes, I did. Every time I say my prayer. Every time. I'm a very, very religious person. I don't go to church that much, but there's not one day I don't speak to the man upstairs. Not one day. There's not one day in my life I don't speak to him. And so every time I got into the ring, and although we knew it was choreographed, and although we knew it was all pre-planned, I always looked up to him, and I always asked him. I said, "Please make sure that everything that goes on tonight goes well." And so that was something I always did in my little corner in the shower or in the bathroom or somewhere a little private, because I didn't. That was my own little thing.
Hmm. Do you do anything to work out? You still look like you're in great shape, so do you do anything? Oh wow, yeah, definitely in
65
good
years
shape.
old. Yeah, I go to the gym about five times a week, and I still work my chest, my bicep, my triceps. I do cardio. I do cardio every day. I got the elliptic, and I got Big Bertha here, kicks my butt every day, and I make sure that yes, I think it's important. I think that I'm a very lucky man. I'm 65 years old and I can still do a lot of things. And now that I have a grandson too, Montana, who's 3 years old, that he's driving me up the wall. I gotta have to run after him all the time. And just yesterday, I had him. I went swimming with him. It was awesome. The first time I brought him in the pool, and I got him on my back, and he hugged my neck, and I was swimming in the pool with him, and it was just amazing because it reminded me of the days that I was swimming on my dad's shoulder like that. So that was amazing. Yeah, remember Montana? Montana's a great kid.
Yeah. So for the final question, I'm planning on becoming a wrestler and joining a wrestling school when I'm 16. Do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler?
Yes, I do. I got plenty of advice for you. Choose well your school.
Hmm.
Um, Pay a little bit more. Find a real professional. You're giving your body to people that could hurt you really severely if they don't know what they're doing. Um, think wrestling. Uh, Watch wrestling. Dream about wrestling. Uh, Live wrestling. And if it's not the things that you do every day, every moment of your life, then don't become a wrestler. If you want to succeed, it's got to be your passion. And I say that not only for wrestling, I say that for anything you do. And when I give my conferences in the schools, I always said that to the kids. We all have a passion inside of us. But when you start, the first time you try your passion, you may not succeed. Do it again. If you work at it 3 hours a week and you don't succeed, then work at it 6 hours a week. If you don't succeed, then work out 12 hours a week and just make sure that you do what you have to do to live your passion. Because in life, if you go punch your card in a shop or a job from 8 in the morning till 5 at night and you don't like what you're doing, life is going to be very, very long. But if you live your passion and you do your passion, life is going to go by just like that. So invest a lot of time, go with the right people, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I've had a blast interviewing you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been kind of fun being with you two.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I hope you have a good month, a good Canada Day.
And how about a good retirement? Because I just turned 65. I'm getting my check for the first time. My old man's
Oh,
check next month.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, sorry, what were you gonna say?
take it, take care of yourself, and
Oh,
you're really a smart kid.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I enjoyed this very much. I had fun with you.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you. And bye. Thank you.
Maybe we'll cross paths soon.
Maybe.
Okay, take
All right.
care.
Bye.